middle of 1:30. The preparation for the party the next day starts bright and early. It was a tight squeeze in the kitchen yesterday, and this morning there are so many people that I can barely get through to grab a pastry from the box Aunt Verna brought over. I sit at the dining room table, picking over an apple strudel as I watch them through the doorway that separates the two rooms. Junior is overseeing things, and even I'm impressed by the way he keeps so many people on task. Della's in charge of the deviled eggs, and Mom and Aunt Verna are sitting at the tiny table against the wall, cleaning greens and shucking fresh corn, which I haven't actually seen anyone do in real life. Uncle Marcus and my father are setting up the tables and games outside. I guess they've called a truce for the good of the party. Ellis plunks down next to me with a cheese Danish in one hand and a chocolate croissant in the other. "What's up with you?" he mumbles, but only after he has a mouthful of food. "What do you mean?" He swallows. "Why didn't you want me to say anything about that college? You were so excited when the letter showed up." "Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right place for me." He makes a face. "How could you know that? You haven't ever been there." "Morning," a voice cuts into the conversation. I look behind Ellis to see Junior standing in the doorway. There's a dish towel hanging from his belt loop. Ellis responds with a cheerful good morning, and I wave my mouth full. "So, y'all just gonna sit there, or you want to help like everyone else?" I frown at him. "Can we finish our breakfast first?" "Damn." Junior looks annoyed, but nods. "Make it quick. I need someone to grate the cheese before I put the macaroni on." "Does he have to be so pissy all the time?" I mutter when he walks away. Ellis pops the rest of the Danish in his mouth and turns to look at Junior over his shoulder as he chews. "I don't know, I think he's kind of cool." I shake my head. That's like the last word I would use to describe him. "He doesn't really care what anyone thinks," Ellis says, "and people listen to him. That's cool." Whenever our parents host parties, they hire people to cook, even for small dinner parties. Mom says it cuts down on the stress of having guests and that she can concentrate on the actual entertaining. That's the norm where we live, hiring out whatever you can, cooking, childcare, house cleaning. It's weird to think that soon Celia won't be a part of our everyday lives. It will feel like a family member is missing. But there's something about this moment with all of us pressed shoulder to shoulder in the kitchen that makes me hope I never hire out cooking when I get older. It's hot and cramped, but it's almost cozy. Mom and Aunt Verna are chattering away like long-lost sisters, and Della keeps cracking jokes as she tends to the eggs. Ellis is posted at the counter with 3 giant blocks of cheese and a grater, and I think it's the most manual labor I've ever seen him do. Junior puts me to work making all the drinks. Lemonade with fresh lemons and 2 different types of iced tea and fizzy red punch with cuts of fruit mixed in. At one point, everyone leaves to go shower and take a break to help Uncle Marcus and my father, and it's just Junior and me. I watch as he pulls out trays of party platters and organizes everything we've been making. "Where are you going to school this fall?" I ask, setting my cutting board in the sink. It's littered with citrus rinds and lemon seeds. His back is to me. He pauses, then says, "I'm not going." "Are you taking a gap year?" Junior laughs, but it's not a nice laugh. "A gap year? Is that what all your fancy friends call it when their parents pay for them to travel to Europe?" My eyebrows knit together. "I never said anything about Europe or my friends." He turns to face me. "Oh, maybe they're the type that go volunteer in Africa for a few months so they can feel better about themselves." "What's your problem, Junior?" "I don't have a problem," he says, though the heat in his eyes tell me otherwise. I just call it like I see it. The tension is interrupted as the back door creaks open. Della walks into the kitchen and stops, looking back and forth between us. "What's going on?" "Absolutely nothing," Junior says, before he leaves the room. I have just enough time to shower and get ready before the guests start showing up. Nana Paulette has invited a few neighbors and friends, and by the time everyone arrives, it's a full-fledged celebration. I guess one advantage to living in the country is that you can play your music as loud as you want and no one cares. It takes a while for Ellis to get the wireless speakers working, so in the meantime, Della's friend Terrence opens the door of his car and starts blasting hip-hop. "What you know about Wu-Tang," he hollered when he turned it up, making what feels like an entire earth shake. The car is long and old, and it would get triple takes from the neighbors where I live, but it's in impeccable condition with a pool blue paint job and white leather interior. "How does he get the wheels so shiny?" I asked after Terrence has left to get a drink. I stare at the blinding silver in the center of the tires. "Wheels?" Della laughs. "You mean rims?" "Yeah, my face and neck flush. I knew that. This car is his baby," she says, shaking her head at the same moment as Aunt Verna calls for us to put on something else and turn that mess down. Della slides into to fiddle with the volume, then perches on the passenger seat and looks at me. "You don't seem like you like being here, Joni. Is it that obvious?" "I guess I just feel out of place sometimes." I touch the shiny blue paint with my index finger and immediately pull it back when Della shoots me a look. "Terrence will kill you if he sees you smudging his car. Just got it detailed." "Sorry, but why do you feel out of place? 'Cause of Junior?" She rolls her eyes. "Don't even pay attention to him. He's always mad about something." "But it's more than that. Last time we were here," I feel silly bringing this up. Something that happened so long ago, but it still bothers me. It still hurts, especially since he seems to feel the same way now as he did back then. "He called me an Oreo." Della bursts out laughing, showing all her teeth. "Thanks," I mumble, looking away. "I'm not laughing at you," she says. "It's just Junior has a lot of opinions, but I wouldn't listen to the most of them." What do you mean?" She looks behind me, and I turn to see Junior walking hand in hand with a girl. She's pretty, with dark skin and long black braids that hang to the small of her back. "He has a girlfriend?" I couldn't be more surprised. He's not a bad-looking guy, but I can't imagine anyone would put up with this surliness if they didn't have to. "Yeah, Lita, she's really sweet." Della looks at me again. "But don't worry about Junior, okay?" I stare at her, waiting for her to explain. Della sighs. He might listen to our dad too much." "What's wrong with Uncle Marcus?" Of course I noticed how he didn't let my father get away with disrespecting HBCUs. But they've bickered like that before, and I like that my uncle stood up to him. "You tell anyone I said this, and I'll deny it till the day I die." Her eyes are serious as she looks at me. "But Daddy got some issues with y'all." "Issues?" I stare at her. "He thinks your mom started acting white when she left Bloom." Della makes air quotes with her fingers. That she's lost touch with her roots because she wanted to go to a big city and make a name for herself. "He thinks it's bougie that you have a nanny and that you live in a town with so many white people when Chicago's right there." "I can't believe you're telling me this," I say, her words sink in. "Yeah, me either, and I don't agree with Daddy, neither does Mommy, just so you know. But Junior, I don't know if it's some masculine thing to try to impress Daddy, or if he's just not smart enough to figure it out himself, but he kind of parrots back what Daddy says, so this whole time, it's been someone else putting ideas into Junior's head, and my Uncle Marcus thinks all of us are Oreos because of the way we live." I look over the card table where they're setting up a game of spades. Uncle Marcus is laughing at something a man next to him is saying, so hard that he's been bent at the waist, hands clapped to his knees. "Don't hate Daddy," Della pleads. "He loves you guys. And listen, I'm majoring in journalism, not psychology, but I think he misses your mom, and maybe he wishes he'd been brave enough to leave too. My dad says some messed up things about black people sometimes," I say after a moment. "My mom too." Della laughs again. "So does Daddy. I have a friend at Howard who's half black and half Chinese. She says some of the meanest things about Chinese people sometimes, but she'd rip us to shreds if we ever repeated it, as she should." She shrugs. "It's just what we do. We always harder on our own people." Finally, Alice gets the speaker set up, and they start playing old doo-wop and Motown and slow, steamy D'Angelo and Prince songs that aren't entirely inappropriate for a family gathering. When the spades game is done, we line up at the tables around the side of the house and fill our plates. We have all the food Junior organized in the kitchen, along with the meat and veggies Dad and Uncle Marcus grilled and the dishes the guests brought. The spread is admirable: deviled eggs, hush puppies, fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, hot links and ribs, corn on the cob, and more. The pitchers of drinks I made are sitting on their own table, and we haven't even set out all the desserts Junior baked. Everyone urges Nana Paulette to get in line first, but she insists on standing behind the table to help serve. She looks too happy to be argued with. Della saves me a seat at the table that just happens to be right across from Junior and his girlfriend, even if it feels a little better knowing his comments were spurred by my uncle's feelings. I don't know that I'm ready to forget the things he said to me. His girlfriend smiles as I sit down. "Hi, I'm Lita." "Joni," I say, surprised that she's so friendly. "Their cousin." "I only have one cousin," she sighs as she forks up a bite of mac and cheese. "I wish I had more like y'all." "There's just 5 of us," Della says. 4 this weekend, without Emma. "I guess it's nice having fewer people to leave when you go away." Lita bumps Junior's shoulder with hers. "I'm going to miss this guy a lot." "Where are you going?" I ask. "Georgetown, my parents' alma mater, so I almost didn't have a choice." She shakes her head, but I can see the pride in her eyes. "And I'm trying to get Marcus to apply so he can join me after his gap year." It's strange to hear her call Junior by his actual name. But even stranger to hear his girlfriend use the same term that he snarled at me for saying only hours ago. I look at him to see if he noticed, but he's staring down at his plate, his mouth full. "I don't know. With me in D.C. too, he might end up in California or something," Della says. But even her smirk can't get Junior to look up and join the conversation. "Joni's going to Spelman in the fall." "Probably," I say, though I know in my heart, it's where I want to be. Lita's face lights up. "You are? Oh, I'm so jealous. That was on my list, but, Georgetown. My parents are diehard Hoyas." Junior finishes his plate before we're even halfway done with ours and stands up immediately, mumbling about having to go finish the birthday cake. "You want help?" Lita asks, almost reluctantly. It's clear that she's perfectly comfortable sitting here with Della and me. "Nah, I got it." He gives her a soft smile and rubs the back of her neck before he leaves. "Girl, you gotta tell me all about D.C., Lita says to Della. "I've only been there a few times, and it's always with my parents." They start discussing the differences between Bloom and Washington, D.C., and Georgetown and Howard, and I zone out, taking in my surroundings. The song on the party playlist changes, and Marvin Gaye's "Gotta Give It Up" comes on, an old song I know because Dad likes to put it on while he's attempting to cook. He usually ends up dancing too much and burning things. My grandmother starts bopping in her seat. And on the other side, Terrence calls out, "What you know about Marvin Gaye, Miss Paulette?" Nana Paulette just laughs, one hand waving in the air as the other taps the cane and leaning on the table. Aunt Verna whips her head around to look at him. "What do you know about Marvin Gaye, little Terrence?" "I'm about to show you, Miss Verna." He leaps from his chair and pulls her to her feet so they can dance. More people get up, including my parents. Mom usually rebuffs Dad when he tries to get her to dance with him in the kitchen, but this time she willingly lets him twirl her around the table. It makes me smile. I get up to dump my plate and wash my hands and narrowly miss being pulled into the dance party. Uncle Marcus taps my arm on my way to the porch, and I think he's going to try to get me to join them, but he just scoops me into a quick hug and kisses the top of my head. Inside, I use the bathroom, and I am walking back to the front door. I hear noises in the kitchen. I follow them to find Junior standing at the counter, carefully icing the cakes he's made last night. He's almost done. "Hey," I say. He startles, then turns around and nods. "What's up?" "I don't know. I was going to say anything until I didn't know I was going to say anything until I was standing here, but we're all alone, and I feel like I can't let the opportunity pass. Do you remember calling me an Oreo the last time I saw you?" His hand pauses, hovering next to the cake. I don't wait for him to answer. "It hurt my feelings, especially since it came from you. I go to school with almost all white people, and they say really crappy things to me. Even my friends sometimes. It's not my fault where I grew up. Sounds like you need some new friends, but there isn't much fire in any, if any, in his voice. Maybe, I say, maybe I'll find better ones when I get to college, but maybe you should think about not judging someone before you really know what it's like to be them. Junior turns around. What about you? Last time you visited, all you did was talk about everything that's different here. How you couldn't believe we don't have a nanny, and that it smells weird out here, and it's boring, and you'd hate to live in such a small town, and your dad. Look, I like Uncle David, but sometimes he says some weird shit. Did I say that? All these years, I haven't been able to shake what Junior said and the name he called me, but judging him, his life, and his home, even if I didn't mean to, I get how deeply that would hurt. Same as his words hurt me, and I don't remember saying it, but the conviction in his voice convinces me it's true, that maybe he's been struggling with that memory as much as I've been wrestling with mine. It makes me feel awful, so I was so careless with my words. We're not some poor Bamas you have to feel sorry for. Bamas? Bamas. You have to feel sorry for, Junior grumbles. Some of us like living here. I don't think that, I say. I'm sorry for what I said, Junior, all of it. But you can't judge me based on what my dad says. I don't like it either. But he gets defensive when we call him out, so I stop speaking up. Well, it wasn't cool that I called you an Oreo. Sorry about that. He's quiet for a moment. Then he lets out a long, slow breath. To be honest, it's not just you that said stuff like that about Bloom. People around here talk that mess. They can't wait to leave. Even Lita. I don't think she'll ever come back when she leaves. Her parents did, right? Junior shakes his head. She's not like her parents. Did you ever think about culinary school? I gestured to the cake and the kitchen in general. All the food was so good, and obviously you know how to crack the whip. He shrugs. Thanks, it's not hard. And I guess I've thought about going into hospitality management, but that means leaving Bloom. And like I said, some of us don't want to leave. Couldn't you take classes in St. Louis or at one of the other schools near here? That's not far, not like going to D.C. You some kind of guidance counselor? The corner of his mouth turns up in a tiny quick smile. But yeah, maybe I could. I return his smile with one of my own. It's funny how my fear can push me to do something that might lead to one of the best experiences of my life, while Junior's fear threatens to hold him back. And strange that I didn't see that we are battling the same thing, even though our lives and ambitions are so different. I guess deep down we're not so different. He clears his throat. You want to help me finish up this cake? We'll burn the place down if we try to do 80 candles, but if we line them up like this, I stand next to my cousin and grin, nudge him in the side and say, hand me those matches.